Here's what happened and why it matters. A wave of new developments involving James Comey, Letitia James, and a Department of Justice employee are raising questions today after all of these cases were thrown out on a technicality. But the real story is what comes next, because President Trump just sent a very clear warning about the week ahead. Welcome back to Ben News. Now let's jump right into this. Today's not about the case that was dismissed. It's about the message that followed. President Trump didn't hold back. He said Comey and Letitia James got out on a technicality, and then he quickly told supporters to watch what happens in the coming days. Now look, when a former FBI director and a sitting attorney general have charges dropped and the former president immediately hints at a new movement, every American should be paying attention. Not because of the politics, because it forces a real question. How consistent is the system and what exactly is coming next? That's what we need to talk about.
First at 5, a federal employee charged with terrorism. She is accused of sharing the name of a federal agent with someone who made a threat against them. Thank you for joining us at 5. I'm Christine Galvan. Javi is off today. We learned of Karen De Leon's arrest just within the last 20 minutes. The Cameron County DA's office says she revealed the agent's name on a social media live stream. The stream was part of a federal law enforcement operation in June. Another man reportedly made a death threat toward one of the agents in the live stream. That is who she allegedly gave the agent's name to. The DA's office says De Leon is an employee at the United States Attorney's Office in Brownsville. She is charged with terrorism and tampering with evidence.
What we just saw is deeply concerning breach of trust inside of the Department of Justice. A DOJ employee is now facing serious charges for allegedly sharing private information about Border Patrol agents with someone who expressed harmful intentions. And here's why this matters. Americans rely on these institutions to keep our law enforcement officers safe and to operate above politics. When even one person on the inside abuses that responsibility, destroys the credibility for the entire system, and it raises real questions about oversight and accountability. This is not a partisan issue. It's a safety issue, and it's a reminder that every agency needs strong internal safeguards to protect the people who we pay to protect us.
I've got a lot of friends that have commercial driver's licenses. That is a very difficult exam. The training there for a commercial driver's license is very difficult for American citizens who speak English. How exactly, in many of these states, California especially, are these truck drivers passing an exam, a very difficult exam, when they can't even speak English? So I think that's problem number one. Is let's take a look at how they're actually being issued those driver's licenses. I've not received a good answer from that on any of those states yet. I think that that bears a little more investigation. As far as the truck drivers, Border Patrol, ICE, and again, those allied law enforcement agencies, we're doing everything we can to take these illegal alien truck drivers off the streets before they kill more American citizens. We just got a couple of more there at one of the Border Patrol checkpoints in Southern California, and I know our ICE operatives there are also doing the same thing. So we're going really hard to identify these truck drivers and take them off the street. I think we're making a lot of headway in doing that.
Now, we just heard from Border Commander Greg Bovino, and he raises some serious and practical concerns about public safety. He says there may be widespread problems with how commercial driver's licenses are being issued to non-citizens, including people who may not even meet the English language requirements that is needed to safely operate large trucks on American roads, so they can read the signs. And here's why this matters. Every American depends on safe highways, qualified drivers, and strong oversight from the states that issue these licenses. If there are gaps in the system, especially in states like California, where he says more cases have appeared than lawmakers and regulators owe the public clear answers, this isn't about politics. It's about making sure everyone on the road is protected and the process is consistent, transparent, and accountable. And I don't know about you, there's millions of people traveling over these Thanksgiving holidays that need to know that the trucks, the big rigs next to them, are being properly operated by someone that can read the signs.
Mr. Miller, what should happen to the seditious six?
Well, they should be held accountable under the law and under the Uniform Code of Military Justice for a seditious conspiracy against the United States of America. This is completely open and shut, straightforward. What is the motivation? Why would 6 members of Congress, selecting specifically for individuals with a CIA or military background, record a carefully written, carefully produced, slickly edited video messaging directly to members of our clandestine services and our armed forces, telling them to disobey orders from their superiors, telling them that they should individually determine whether an order is legal or illegal and defy it. Individuals who are exercising life and death power. The CIA engages in covert missions all over the world involving life and death decisions. The armed forces launches life-taking missions time and time again. They carry weapons. They control drones. They control missiles. They work on nuclear submarines. For what purpose would you ever deliver this message? As you said, it's to create a color revolution. It is the CIA playbook for trying to foment insurrection from within the military and within the CIA. Look, we saw after Charlie Kirk was assassinated, Jesse, members of the armed forces openly celebrating his murder. So think about that for a second. You have people in the armed forces, and it can be a tiny, tiny percentage, but who celebrated the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and then now they're getting a message from Kelly and from other members of Congress saying, defy your commanders. Rise up and defy your superiors. That kind of language will get people killed. It endangers our national security. It is dangerously radicalizing. And it has all of the evidence of willfulness and intent. And when they go on TV and they say, well, we can't name what order is illegal, that proves the point. It was never about the law. It was breaking down the chain of command. The Democrat Party is openly engaged every day in trying to tear down democracy, whether it be judges who are binding the president with unlawful orders, releasing violent criminals back onto the street, trying to cement and protect the illegal alien invasion of America, and now fomenting rebellion inside of the ranks of our armed forces and CIA.
What we just heard is a very serious accusation aimed at the group that is now being called the Seditious Six. Stephen Miller argues that their message to military members crossed a line and should be reviewed under both federal law and the Uniform Code of Military Justice. And here's why this matters. America depends on a military that stays outside of political pressure. No matter which party is in charge, when political figures or commentators urge service members to take sides or even appear to encourage it, that threatens the trust and stability that our institutions functioning need. Claims like these, whether people agree with them or not, remind us how important it is to keep the military focused on duty and not politics, and to ensure accountability is handled through a lawful, transparent process. And here's a perfect example of why this matters.
Here in my hands, I have a written paper so I can be very articulate and clear about this message. May 2nd, 2023, I raised my hand and swore an oath to protect the Constitution and the land of the free with the people that reside within. The immigrants paying U.S. taxes, building homes, working blue-collar jobs. I serve to protect these people. They are our people, the ones that came into the U.S. authorized on a visa or green card, getting stripped away from families, undocumented children, losing parents, friends, siblings, pulled from homes to sit in a concrete room. They are kids. I don't need to be Hispanic to know this is wrong. I wear the name United States across my chest daily. I am a reflection of this country. I'm not proud to say this is a country I'm serving if it means destroying the lives of people that provide for this nation. Yes, there is a legal process, but it can be bettered. The colonists didn't have to pay thousands of dollars or get a visa to be on this stolen land. I might lose the uniform I wear, but then what is the First Amendment? Te escucho.
What we just saw is a statement from a current United States Air Force member who says he doesn't feel proud serving a country that he believes deports immigrants from what he calls stolen land. That sentiment pulls on real tensions around immigration, history, and service to country, and it forces a serious question. How do we reconcile patriotic duty with deeply held beliefs and identity concerns in a diverse America? For many Americans, this isn't just theoretical, it's personal. Regardless of your viewpoint, this highlights how immigration policy, deportation, enforcement, and national identity can weigh heavily on those sworn to serve. It also shows why transparency, fairness, and respect for all Americans matter, especially when the people wearing the uniform feel conflicted. And some of that confliction is coming from people like the seditious six. They are inciting doubt within our military ranks. And this is why they need to be made an example. And I hope Senator Mark Kelly gets his uniform ready.
Our confirmation from the judge that we are formally out of the consent decree, but along the way, I have preferred to use the term that we've graduated. We have taken back our own ownership of our agency. To be in the country undocumented is civil issue. We will not enforce civil law. And so our support is to make sure they're not going to get hurt and our community is not in danger.
Now, what we just heard from the New Orleans police superintendent is sparking a lot of pushback. She said that being in the country illegally is purely a civil matter and therefore not something her officers would enforce. Now, I'm going to challenge that claim, arguing that immigration law includes both civil and criminal components and that local leaders need to understand the distinctions clearly. And here's why this matters. Americans want clarity, consistency, and safety from the people who run major police departments. When statements about the law are disputed this publicly, it raises questions about communication, training, and I would say moral equity. This is how the coordination between state and local and federal agencies work. At its core, this is about trust and whether the public can rely on its leaders to give them the full and correct picture.
Biden administration allegedly pressured airports to house migrants despite warnings it could compromise safety and put travelers at risk. That, according to a new bombshell Senate report that says the Biden administration directed federal agencies to find airport facilities that could be used as shelters or migrant processing facilities. At least 11 airports were allegedly asked to find space, including Chicago's O'Hare and JFK here in New York.
What we're looking at here is a new Senate report claiming the administration directed federal agencies to identify airport facilities that could be used to temporarily house or process migrants, even after some officials raised concerns about how this might affect airport operations and traveler safety. And here's why this matters. Airports are critical infrastructure. Americans expect them to be secure, predictable, and focused on transportation, not emergency housing for illegal migrants. Anytime a major policy decision intersects with safety concerns, the public deserves transparency and an explanation of how risks were evaluated. This report raises real questions about planning, communication, and whether better alternatives were considered. For millions of travelers, the issue comes down to trust, whether the government is balancing humanitarian needs with public safety and practical common sense. The only time I want to see illegals in an airport is when they're being flown home, just like E.T.
Are you planning to replace Cash Patel as
No, he's doing a good job.
This week?
Cash Patel? No, he's doing a great job, I think.
This week we saw those cases against James Comey and Letitia James tossed out. Do you still have faith in Lindsay Halligan?
She's great. I think she's great. They got out on a technicality, and you'll see what happens from here on. But if you look at the actual charges, I think anybody that looks at it very fairly would say, boy, are they guilty. So let's see what happens over the next week. You know, the court didn't say you couldn't bring the case, re-bring the case, or appeal the case. So they have a lot of options. They're going to call the shot. I'm not calling the shot. But Lindsay's a very talented lawyer, actually.
What we just heard from President Trump is a pointed message aimed at James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James after their indictments were dismissed on a technicality. He's signaling that the situation isn't over and hinting that more developments could unfold in the coming days. And here's why this matters. When high-profile legal cases involving major political figures shift directions this quickly, this is going to raise big questions about the process, the accountability, and what comes next. Some of these judges have been playing political lawfare from behind the bench under the dark robe, and it brings doubt into the entire justice system. We want the same level of justice no matter who you are, no matter how rich you are or how poor you are. You deserve that. It is delineated in the Bill of Rights. Trump's comments really laid down exactly what is going to happen, and he is not putting up with political lawfare. However this plays out over the next week, it's clear we're watching an important moment in how the justice system handles high-profile cases. I'm going to keep tracking every update and break it down for you as it happens. If you found this helpful, make sure you hit the subscribe so you don't miss the next report. Smash that notification button as well. And if you want to support the channel, drop a comment below. Let me know what you think is coming next. I read every single one. Thanks for watching Ben News. I'll see you in the next one.
Today, when I sign the Crown Act into law, that will be the next step in making good on that promise of bringing about real freedom for all Pennsylvanians.
This public policy campaign is my brainchild in a nationwide effort I have led since 2018. Determining it was necessary to change the law to help redress the long-standing and problematic practice of racial discrimination in the form of hair discrimination, I subsequently developed the national legislative, social impact, and coalition building strategies for this movement because for too long, a myopic notion of professionalism and Eurocentric standards of beauty have perpetuated racial inequity and exclusion. Too many Black children have been suspended and missed what should be valuable instruction time because their hair, worn in ways that are aligned with their racial identity, have been deemed a violation of school rules.
I am a child growing up in the Virgin Islands with natural hair. Natural hair has been braids, twists, locks all my life. That's all I know. As you know, I still have locks. But wearing my natural hair has been all that I know. But as I opened my salon and spoke to different clients that wear braids, that's telling me, Lorraine, I have to take these braids out. I have a job interview. Or Lorraine, I have to cut my locks down because my job says too long. And the recent one was my client who says, Lorraine, they talking about me. I have to do something. I have to cut my locks because of my job. You know, they saying it's unprofessional to have locks. And I'm like, wow.
Look, we know that this is an issue that disproportionately affects Black Pennsylvanians who wear their hair in protective styles like locks and natural braids or twists. And it can manifest itself in a number of different ways, from someone getting fired simply because of how they look, or maybe someone getting passed over for a job because of the way they wear their hair. That's unacceptable. And in a moment, it will be illegal.
Thank you.
Representative May, that's for you.
Yes.
Madam Speaker, that is for you. And this is the Crown Law.